Hello and aloha to the Baha'is of the world. My name is Abbas Tamori. As you know, I've taken the project of explaining the Masnavi of Baha'u'llah, but something has been bugging me in the last few days, I should say last few weeks, and I have to take it off my chest. This is why I'm putting in interjections into the program to bring up this topic about the controversial statements and even the laws and lots of other sort of things that are in the Baha'i Faith and in all the revelations of the past. I'd been communicating with a group, a Persian man. They call themselves Tahariya Haqiqat, which means they're working under the disguise, of the investigation of the truth as one of the principles of the Baha'i Faith. And they're throwing a lot of material out of context, totally misleading a lot of people. He had that, what is this idea of casting people off? Why Baha'u'llah said so many things that are contradictory, and so much that I give him all his answers in Persian language, and I will be putting on the website so people, they know what these questions and ask, how they receive the answers. Then, as if he found that there's no way out except accepting what I say, because I talk according to science and logic, and I'm not an emotional person when I bring the subject of the matter that we have to speak about. So, and then I saw again, going back to the same kind of questioning, same kind of a language, to some youngsters on the Facebook, bringing the same thing that I did give him an answer. I just felt that these people have an ulterior motive. They call themselves Baha'is. They do say Baha'u'llah, but at the same time they say a lot of stuff about Baha'u'llah that definitely shows these people they're not Baha'is and they're disguising themselves in the Baha'i. But by keeping themselves in the Baha'i community, they feel it's better to penetrate people. One of the things that he was saying to me that Baha'u'llah says those who disagree with me, they're not even called people. They should not be called human beings, much less to be respectful. He said, how could this mean? What does Baha'u'llah say here? He's not accepting any opposition, any ideas that are against him or whatever. This is a dictatorial statement, he said. I told him it's not. It's how you like to see it. When Baha'u'llah says people are opposing me, they're not human beings, I can absolutely see why. What does Baha'u'llah say? Opposition to Baha'u'llah is opposition to humanity. He says man and women are equal. That's one of the principles of the Baha'i Faith. Those who disagree with it, and they think their sister and their mother and their daughters are not equal to their children, to their father, so how could these people be called human beings when they just completely deny half of the other human being? When Baha'u'llah says people should not be differentiated based on their colors, based on their religion, based on their language, based on ethnicities and cultural background, based on their nationalities. If you don't accept this, how could you be called human? Baha'u'llah's rules and the laws and revelation is so basic of a humanity that has to survive these clashes of our centuries and remains. In future, there's not a single person who would not believe in this thing, whether they're Baha'i or they're not even Baha'i. So I told him this is what it means. So it really upset me that he brought all of these things back again. I quite literally told him that these things coming out of your tongue, out of your mouth, physically, but spiritually it's coming out of your rear end. Your soul is placed on Your bottom end of your soul is placed on your mouth. Objecting to Baha'u'llah, a being that has given his life, his lordish life, to the jail all his life, a life that death is 1,000 times better than that, objecting at him and putting controversy and things that you know it's not right. So, this is why I thought that I have to bring this up, because these people know what it is. The reason for it, don't let me just speak about the reason, is that when you're a Baha'i, like everything else in the world, you have to update yourself. If you come from Iran and you come with a bunch of belief that is inherited from your fathers and grandmothers, and you come in the West and never open any book, but you go and become a scientist, physicist, biologist, whichever, and you never studied Baha'i Faith to find out what these things, how they are, working with the faith, what's going to happen? One side of you get lopsided. You just simply have no background spiritually for all your physical achievement. You become a lopsided individual. Even when you say Baha'u'llah and I believe in Baha'u'llah, in your heart you don't believe it. Because it's a practical thing to say I believe in Baha'u'llah. You have to prove it scientifically. A lot of others, they say they're Baha'is, but when they give their proof about the Baha'i Faith, it's really so low of a scientist who speak like that about Baha'u'llah and the Baha'i Faith. That's just embarrassing. Like me, come and tell the truth, what you are, don't mislead the Baha'is, and get cast off like me. Then people, they know you. But you're staying among the Baha'is and you call yourself Baha'i, and you're nothing but a weasel, on the barren desert of oblivion, and you want to challenge the lion of Baha'u'llah. What proof do you have? What study have you done? What thought have you put into? You think you're a critique bringing these things up? So this is the reason. You have to update yourself. If you don't update yourself and just say, oh, I'm a Baha'i, and that's it. When you study biology and all of that, you put everything become questionable to you. I've spoken to many of them. They were devout believers in Iran. The boy would be ready to die for Baha'u'llah. He came here right in Seattle. He became a doctor. He says, I don't know anything about Baha'u'llah right now. I said, I'm sure. You're honest. Would be more honest if you go and pick your cards right out and say you're not a Baha'i. And I've seen still others that I had another discussion, this time with a very good Baha'i. And she was saying that I don't understand this violence in the writing of Baha'u'llah. For example, it says an arsonist has to be burned. Baha'u'llah says if somebody burn a house, you have to burn him away. Or same thing with adultery and other things. It seems very violent. And she was saying Canadian laws and whatnot are a lot more progressive. It just seems to me that Baha'u'llah was from 18th century Iran. He could not. I said, see this? Now you're taking him to be an 18th century person with that kind of a perception that you think he has, and aware of what's happening in the future. Therefore, you're just trying to intellectualize everything in that way. And with this little wisdom, it causes the problem. I explained a few things to her too, but these things are not, of course, limited to the Baha'i Faith. For example, in the Bible, Jesus is going and there's the donkey, and he says to the disciples, bring the donkey. He says, sir, this donkey doesn't belong to us, it belongs to somebody else. Literally, Jesus Christ confiscated the donkey. He says that everything belongs to Son of Man, bring him over. You see? In Islam, there are laws very strange. Muhammad says if you want to say two people have committed adultery, 4 just witnesses have to be testifying. That is 4 guys, that they're good, famous, just, fair. You tell me, how would somebody have an adulterous sexual mating with another person in front of 4 guys? How would those 4 guys even watch this? Wouldn't they leave the room? Unless you put a gun behind their head and tell them, no, watch it. So when you look at it, it's an impossible law. Because such circumstances that you do commit adultery with 4 guys watching you is so rare, it's impossible almost. Even Abdu'l-Baha alludes to it. He says the law seems to be not practical at all. What does that mean? Then basically nobody can accuse of anybody of adultery. And so on and so forth. There's so many of it in Islam and in Christianity, and the Baha'i Faith, not excluded. That begs the questions to bring an answer to these things. And that's what I'm trying to tell you tonight. So I'm not going to go to individual questions of this Wiesel that is bringing these things up. Baha'u'llah did that, or Bob said this. I'm not going to bring it up because the classifications of those and category of those, there's bunch and there's lots. But we have to know what is the premises and what is the argument, what is the reasoning behind all of these things. I've thought of few. I can share it with you. The most important point in the Baha'i Faith is that what that Baha'i Effendi says. Thanks God to him. My God, what an engineer, divine engineer he was. He says Baha'i Faith is a relative truth. It's not an absolute truth. It's the truth now. The Baha'i rules and the Baha'i laws are practical. They're not necessarily truth for all the time. It's a practical solution. It's not an ultimate solution. Baha'u'llah rather not to have any arsonists. He rather have a society prepared to a point that such thing doesn't happen anyways. So no such laws would necessarily to even be talked about. But because there are this kind of things, he brings this up. Now we say to ourselves, why? Why would he say that? How crazy is that to watch a person getting burned because he intended to burn other people? Very violent, isn't it? To the Canadian standard. May not be to American, to other places. Or you think that in future these things totally become obsolete. Nobody would ever go towards these things. That's not true at all. So, what is the point of compassion of God then? Where is this God that talks like this? This guy was objecting and telling me that Baha'u'llah says politeness is what we Baha'is, you have to be so polite in what we say, in how we say, in our conduct, in our talk, in our utterances. And after saying all of that, he calls his opponent, the arch enemy of Baha'u'llah, Azal, he calls him jackass. Tell to him, Ya ayyuhal hamir. Actually to the guy who was defending Azal, some kind of a judge, he calls him jackass. So he was saying that this is not very polite. So what is this? What is the answer, general answer to these things? I told you, the answer number one is that Baha'i Faith is not a relative truth, it's a practical truth. It is what's working. It may not be nice to you, it may not be scientific to you in a way, but it is practical, it's going to work. And this lies in the fact of the essential claim of the Baha'u'llah. He does not say, I am a philosopher with new postulations. He does not even call himself prophet or messenger of God. Manifestation of God, he says. But when it comes to his responsibility, his mission relative to mankind, he summarized it in one essential word. He says you can call me anything you want. Manifestation, messenger, prophet, philosopher, if you don't believe in me. But I'm neither of them. I'm not a philosopher, I'm not an artist, I'm not a scientist. For these things, I would not go to jail to bring a new formula in the science or another postulate, another philosophy. I have come for something that none of you human beings are capable to solve. He says, I am the divine physician. Please remember this. Divine physician. I'm a doctor, he says. My writing is called prescription. Of course. If you just go into a doctor and you open up the book, you would not be able to read not even 1/3 of these prescriptions, even their name, as it is right now. I had a hard time to say cefazolin, which is an antibiotic attached to my arm because my back was broken. I couldn't say it. I still don't know how to write it. I certainly do not know how is it made. But am I going to say Dr. Ginsburg, who ordered this for me, doesn't know what he's talking about? Can I say that? Or where the origin of these things are. Some of them are very controversial. They're literally made out of the feces. If you have a problem, certain type of, antibiotics. So, same is with Baha'u'llah. A lot of things that he says we do not understand. It's hard to fathom. But we know the prophets of God in the past, they said things, it all works. Jesus, Moses, and he's one of them, relative to this time. All of them have prophesied him. He is the one. So if there is a God, he is the manifestation of God. And if he's the manifestation of God, it is not possible for us to understand everything that he says. Not today. Maybe in future we might be able. But it's not up to us to object at him. Baha'u'llah said this, Baha'u'llah called that guy this. When he calls him jackass, believe me, that is the only word that could be used to save him. Baha'u'llah is not disappointed at him. The worst enemy of Baha'u'llah is Asal. In Kitab Aqdas says, still there is a time. He begs him to come back. Now you're objecting that this doctor, the strategy and procedure that he has is not according to your mind, to your dismal thinking power. So then we have to understand that the word of Baha'u'llah and the Baha'i Faith in general, not only it is relative and it is a practical truth, is not an essential, an ultimate, and a final, and an absolute truth. It is the truth now. For a sick man, the truth is that he has to take antibiotic. But that's not the food that he has to take. He has to take it because he's sick now. The Baha'i Faith is that prescription that has to be applied now. Future it will change. This is very important, we have to know. Second thing is very important in understanding Baha'i Faith and understanding these controversial things that you see to it, it's a lot of time, is that Baha'i Faith is an open religion. It's very amazing. Because for the first time ever, God have brought a religion that is forever under construction. Very correctly and wisely, Universal Laws of Justice says it's an organic growth. Something God planted, it will grow. We don't know to where and to what. You will see its changes as it comes. It's an organic thing. Baha'i Faith is dynamic, it's not dogmatic. You and I can add to it. Yes. Write down something so great of your understanding, sending it to the authority, universal laws of justice now and universal laws of guardianship in future. They will make it to be a part of the Baha'i Faith. Show the Effendi clearly says any modern thinking can be embedded into the faith of God. It's not stopping you. Therefore, the lot of changes, if you don't like some of the things, now, remember, they can be changed. It's an open religion. Baha'u'llah has written on the constitution, the very foundation. Okay? So the house that we're going to be building it as a foundation is not going to collapse. It's not going to get heaved. But we have to build it up. This is why the institution of universal laws of justice could actually legislate new laws. The institution of universal laws of guardianship in the future can actually interpret the writing. And when the interpretation comes, all these questions that you have in your mind, it will be all resolved, it will be all solved. So far we understood what? That it's an open religion. What you don't understand, the meaning of it can become later. You can simply add to it. And it's relative. It's practical. And like the word of doctors, cannot be understood sometimes. Cannot be in a spell, cannot be pronounced. It might taste bitter hell, but it works. There's another point I have to say to you that is very important for those who of you that you're turning into Baha'u'llah and trying to understand it, is that the revelation of God has an exact affinity with the nature of God. This is a prime directive by Abdu'l-Baha. He says the spiritual realm is an exact counterpart of the physical realm. So the nature is physical, revelation is a spiritual. These are very much counterpart of each other. Same rules, same thing exist in them. You go into nature, the very nature, without it we cannot live. We will die if the nature is not what it is right now. But you walk in this nature with the bare foot, you get stung by a small sliver. They inject poison in you, it might kill you. You go and see this beautiful flower, inhale it, the poison of it will kill you. One wrong mushroom will kill you. One touch of a snake is the poison that can kill you. There are ditches. There are quicksands. It's very difficult. But a scientist, when it looks at the nature, he says every part of these things are necessary. Even these mosquitoes, even these insects that cause us to die if you're not protecting. Without them, the whole ecosystem will not work. All of it has to be there. It's all the component of an engineering that makes this machine of the universe works. All of it has to stay there. But not all of it is useful to us. Not all of it can be used at all the times. Not all of it can be used directly. It has to be combined with other components. Definitely needs a specialist to explain a lot of it to us, to create pills, medicine, to be used for surgery, for literally saving our lives. Revelation of God, my friends, is the same thing. There are a lot of ditches, a lot of quicksands in the writing of Baha'u'llah and all other religions. You don't know, you fall into, you cannot come out. Some of it is totally poisonous. It is. Because the creator of the universe is the writer and the author of this book. It is the same being. This is why I've created this program, this philosophy, just like the nature We see its beauty, but it's not useful. We will construct that nature to create this room, to maintain certain temperature in it, to be cold in the summer, to be hot in the winter, and like the nature, in order to be able to survive. Same way, you have to study the Baha'i Faith to create a healthy concept for yourself of what it is. And you have to continuously update yourself. Just simply say, oh, I believe in Baha'u'llah. It means nothing. Baha'u'llah is just a word. You have to see what he has done. You have to bring reason to be impressed by his life of his followers. Your feeling has to be motivated, intrigued by the action of his followers, of the martyrs, and by his life. And then you have to immerse in his writing. Question it, no problem. Even deny it, no problem. But you remember, he's the physician. Every time he's right over you. Simply you do not have his faculty, his ability, his degree. You don't have his license. He's the doctor, you're not. You're sick. He's the only one. You see? Now, just like this guy, this Persian weasel, to come down and object that doctor, those poor beings that are with him or trying to go to him, creating a mistrust in them that they should leave Baha'u'llah because he said this and he said that, and this time he went to do this, and so on and so forth. A man has to be committed. That's what the belief comes. Once you recognize Baha'u'llah, then you trust him for what he says, everything he says. And you don't question him. A teacher in a class will not undergo the changes that we as a student have to go. If teacher tells tomorrow you have an assignment, you have to do this and that, I cannot come tomorrow in the class and say, sir, why didn't you do yourself the writings? How come you have no assignment? Would that be a logical objection at the teacher? That why doesn't he have assignment like we do? Well, objecting of Baha'u'llah, why he called that guy this and why he called him that, you're telling to the doctor, don't give this prescription to him because it's bitter, because I don't like it. What are you doing? What are these objections, Mr. Tahari Harikat, that you're bringing in the writing of Baha'u'llah, the master of universe, the creator of universe, and then threatening me? I am well beyond your dismal existence, well beyond the scope of your destitute comprehension. You're the weasel of desert, can never attain to the height of the eagle who's nesting on the mountain, can never get there. So, these are the very important things. Remember that. If there is something wrong according to your mind in the Baha'i Faith, remember, the nature is just like that. It's useful, but it is not, according to some of us. Those who are specialists, they find it all useful. Some of the writings are like that. It could be misleading you. Okay? Number two, remember, if you don't understand it, it looks to you contradictory, it is just like the doctor you visit every day when you get sick. Those doctors can say procedures, prescriptions that is absolutely not understandable. not palatable, not edible, but you have to take it. Because it works. Why? Because Jesus worked, Moses worked, Christ worked, and he's them. They all prophesied that it is him with a much higher and bigger scope. So the writing of Baha'u'llah is the word of doctor, not understandable sometimes. Or it is work of God in the nature. Sometimes it may not be useful to everyone. And at the end of the day, things can change in the Baha'i faith. It's not dogmatic. There's universal laws of justice. In future there will be universal laws of guardianship. And Baha'u'llah says make the religion according to science and logic. So once we know more about the science and the logic in the future, then if we don't understand certain things, we can bring up new things and put it into the faith of God. He allowed us. Show us as you could do it. And finally, this is not an ultimate truth. It's a useful truth. Everyday food for you is to eat your food. But when you're sick, you will be given prescriptions. You see? For the time being, Baha'i faith is that prescriptions. So, now, the final part of this discussion tonight is that, okay, there are stuff in the faith that is not understandable. We accept it. It is true. And some of it might be harmful to us, but still we go through it because at the end of the day it will work, it will be useful. How do we understand it? What's the procedure of understanding Baha'u'llah? What a master is he. What a gracious master. He could just puff the planet Earth to go away. He has trillions of it. But he doesn't do that. What a liberal God is he. With his infinite power stand equal to us. He understands that our ability is only this much. He demonstrates only that much in the form of Baha'u'llah, not more. You see? So, Baha'u'llah says, yes, you can understand. He actually has a class. He actually has a curriculum. You want to become like Baha'u'llah? You want to understand him? You want to understand what the strategy of some of these words are? Some of these rules are? Where they come from? Sure. Set aside the laziness, Mr. Tahari Haqiqat. Come into the practical class of Baha'u'llah. It's called 7 Valleys. Go on, become a specialist. It's not by reading the book. It will not help you. Baha'u'llah says you are 10 years old, 15 years old, and if you read these books, it will change when you become 25. When you're 25, you read all my books and this and that. When you become 50 and old like me, all of a sudden the concept again changes. Because you undergo changes. Let's get you up to the point that you're not going to have changes. Let your spiritual power get to its climax, that your 20 looks like your 70s. Let us step into the valley of surge. Let's get on to show our movement. Teach the faith of God. It's a sign of a person who is seeking to go to God, go Baha'u'llah, get close to him, then he starts to teach. And when he teaches and he sees how hard it is, as he's doing it, he falls into the love of teaching. And then he loves people, a lot of them. He sees how hard it is to turn them into the faith of God. Saves these people. Then you understand the love. Once you're in love, then you come to great realizations. And that realization, as it grows up, then you see a huge oneness in this universe. You see you and God are the same. The difference is only time. You're just a smaller one. You're the baby God. You find you and Baha'u'llah are the same. He's the greatest teacher of all. You're the greatest student of all. Teacher without the greatest student has never been great. Student who has the greatest teacher, then he's loved. Then you see there's a oneness going on in the world. That makes you to feel that richness. Complete richness that is outside of the material realm. And then you step in this bewilderment. You go up and down. And then you came to a stand still. Your hardware subscribes, create a connection to the internet of God. He becomes you, you become him. Then all of these things that you're saying becomes totally understandable, acceptable. The truth is like you are looking at a speck of dust in the road and you wonder what that is. When you get closer, you see it's moving, you say it's a being. You get closer, and then you see it's a human. Closer yet, then you know it's a female. You get closer, you see that's my sister. You get closer to her and put electronic microscope. You see she doesn't exist. She's a mountain of cells moving like a huge mountain. You go further down, you don't even see cells at all, you see atoms going everywhere. Which one of all this concept is the truth? Which one of them is the ultimate truth? What is this thing that you saw in the road and under the electron microscope? See, they're all the same object. They all look differently, from a different distance. You got farther away, and now you see all this sickness of yours showing up, and you're pointing objections at Baha'u'llah, not even understanding that Baha'u'llah is not here now. When you're insulting him, when you're saying he's impolite, when you're saying he's unfair, when you're saying this kind of word, you're directly attacking those who love him, those who take him as their father. You're attacking me. Baha'u'llah is the essential part of me. You want to attack him, then you're attacking me. Then I turn into a bulldog. I will come after you. So, we can understand. We will look at the TV. Now I want to see how TV works. Okay, it's possible. We just have to take some other steps further. In other words, the Sufis in Islam, which they have this last value of selflessness, in the Baha'i Faith I call it really connection. The last value of the seven values is the value of connection. When you connect yourself to God, just like your computer is connecting to the internet, you subscribe to the internet of God and you connect yourself to Him. So, but you can get there by studying practical law. Baha'i Faith is not just studying the book, we want to help you. You have to go act upon it. The best act is the most useful one that makes you to grow. At today, right now, this time is teaching, pioneering. If you do those things, you will grow very fast towards an ultimate climax of your characters. then you know why he says this thing. You see, you become a part of the team. Then you know. But right now, standing outside, just because you went to some of these classes in the West, under the disguise of the democracy that you call it, and freedom and liberations, you filled your mind with these things, and you think you're a Baha'i because 20 years ago you read some book. You of course come back to the Baha'i Faith and you find out, no, this is not you anymore. Of course it's not. So what do? You then try to go to understand it. You think it's wrong, well then leave it. Let go. But stand, because you don't understand it, you want to attack it right now and insult his followers. Now you're entering into an area that it's the eternal crime, because you're hurting people's feeling. You know, he personally has told me that I have to endure myself. I have to control myself. But if somebody insults Baha'u'llah in front of me, be it the entire planet, I will slap his face immediately. Even if it's the President of the United States of America, I slap him so hard if he insults Baha'u'llah in front of me. Or any damn other ones, as I've done it before. But he tells me that don't do it. So sometimes it is hard to control. I have that problem of Zabi all the time. Okay, this is a story, it seems there's no end. But this is an introduction to the program. I hope it's useful to some of you. Okay? Thank you.